So in number 5, great brands sweat the small stuff. This one seems more logical to me. I can see a brand who really does a great job paying attention to everything. But then I turned to the chapter, and the very first acronym, I thought I'd heard them all. But FMOT, F-M-O-T, it sounds more like something my teenage children would say, and I would have to correct them.
Well, it's a term that the brand marketers at P&G coined that stands for the first moment of truth. For them, it's the 3 to 5 seconds that someone has when they encounter a product on the shelf, and they make that split-second decision whether they're going to pick up that product or not. So when you're sweating the small stuff, you become aware of those moments of truth, those times that are so impactful for whether the customer is going to decide to do business with you or not.
That's interesting, and that's got to vary when you think about like a packaged good product on a supermarket shelf versus a company that would sell a service like insurance services. There's got to be a big difference, but yet that moment still occurs, right? So somebody has to say, yes, that's what I'm looking for and that's what I want.
Mm-hmm. You know, one of my clients it has people who interact with their customers directly, and they're starting to become very aware of what these people are wearing and what kind of impression that really gives, and feeling like, you know, we don't need to have uniforms per se, but we need to be very clear about what standard we expect our employees to keep in their dress so that our brand is expressed even in a detail like that.
That's interesting. What are some other examples of how a brand gets expressed in maybe the smallest of things?
Right. I love how several years ago the folks at Starwood Hotels developed patented smells for each one of their hotel brands. So when you go into Westin, you smell this white tea linen fragrance. When you go into W Hotels, there's a signature fragrance. You know, and the CEO, Stephen Heyer, at the time that the program was rolled out, said, you know, this was part of a comprehensive effort to impact people emotionally and really make a strong impression on them. And they've seen great results as a result of doing this.
And that's pretty interesting because I think I've read I think this is correct, that smell is the one that we associate the most with memory. So maybe that's that idea of when I walk back in the hotel, it feels like, oh, good, I'm back, or I'm home.
Yes, it's familiar, or comfortable, absolutely.
Now, do companies appeal to all the senses? So is there visual and auditory as well?
Yes, I believe that great brands try to impact their customers through all 5 senses, because I think that's how you get a very visceral reaction from them.
Now you've got a pretty unusual, would I call it a tool? I mean, the wheel is what I'm thinking of.
Sure.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the brand touchpoint wheel. It's a visual framework that identifies all the different ways that people in the outside world come into contact with your brand. I think most of us typically think of things like advertising or PR or logo or signage or maybe collateral at a trade show. But the truth is that those kinds of marketing communications touchpoints are only a fraction of all the hundreds of ways that someone actually encounters your company. And so you need to be very aware of them, and this brand touchpoint wheel is one tool you can use to identify all those different ways.
Interesting. So a touch point would be, another way to say that would be any way that a customer perceives, interacts with, sees your brand and begins to understand it.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the ways some people have done that.